Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Manor University. I'm your assistant professor, Bodee, joined as always with my best friend and other assistant professor, Michael Hamilton. Michael, we've covered a lot of Oldhim, and we've covered a lot of Iyslander, but this will actually be our first Oldhim v. Iyslander match on the channel. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is crazy. They're probably the two heroes we've covered the most on the channel, but we have never actually got them paired against each other. So it'll be a good one.
Yeah, and so we will be biased in this game, a non-zero amount, because Wolfpack member and good friend of ours, Michael Feng, is the Oldhim / Eeyore pilot, right?
Yeah.
So I guess if we start looking at equipment, it's interesting that Michael Feng is on Stalagmite when normally there's been a lot of shift to Arcane Lantern. So what do you think about that choice?
Yeah, it's nice to stay on Stalagmite because it saves you a sideboard slot. And even when you're on Lantern, like if the Icelander's on like Scars, then Stalagmite's usually better than Lantern. The other thing is Lantern kind of like you want Lantern when your game plan is to fatigue them. Michael Feng usually is playing a more aggressive slanted Oldhim. He's usually not trying to fatigue Icelanders. And I don't think he has like the Warhorn Remembrance stuff to like really do the fatigue stuff. So if you're not doing that, it doesn't make sense to put Arcane Lantern in your deck either.
Okay. And then on the Iyslander side of things, no Crown of Providence. Instead, it's a Cornet Peak.
We'll make the CNC Pummels a little scarier. I think I've said this a bunch of times, but I really like Crown of Providence because then you can stick your Sink Below in Arsenal and have no fear of their CNC Pummel stuff. In the world where some of the Oldhims are trying to hard fatigue you, I think it's like reasonable to just not include Crown of Providence in your deck list. I think it's a sideboard slot that's basically only for the two Guardians, and if some of the Guardians you want Crown of Providence against, or not Crown of Providence, sorry, Cornet Peak against anyway, because they are not trying to fatigue you and you rather just like have a way to strip a card sometimes. I think it's pretty reasonable to not include Crown of Providence in your deck list.
Fair enough. Looks like Michael Feng is on the play. Remembers his tunic counter, off to a good start.
Yep. Always want to remember the tunic counter.
So the dream here, right, is to have a big dominate attack, right? And I think I see a Macho Grande in there. And looks like that's hard to find all proxy, not actual cracked bobble. What's funny is I was looking at the opening hand and it's like, I think I see a cracked bobble, but there's no way it's actually a cracked bobble, right? And then it was a cracked bobble, but a proxy cracked bobble, but it was just a thought I had. Anyways, here's a Macho Grande.
So I've actually had this situation come up a few times where when your opponent dominates a big attack on you, on turn one and has no resources floating, I've been actually cracking my Storm Striders here if you have a pretty good Storm Striders line. Just like get your 5 damage or 6 damage through, and then you're going to draw back up anyway. And Storm Striders being worth 6 damage, I felt like that's like a pretty reasonable spot to be in.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it looks like Iyslander on their turn one is going to be playing an Insidious Chill, and then coming in with a Waning Moon for 2, pitching an Energy Potion and a Channel like Frigid. Obviously, you'd rather be attacking or trying to push damage, but Insidious Chill is an important card to see.
Yeah, and I think in general, you're pretty happy to just like set up some permanents early on. You want to be behind the Oldhim the whole game or for like a decent amount of the game in terms of life total to keep all your effects turned on. So playing out these powerful permanents early on is perfect. The only worry here is I believe Drew's last card is a Wounded Bull. So if he draws another Wounded Bull this turn or some other 2 attacks or 2 block attack actions, it could be kind of awkward. But
looks like he's fine on this cycle. But Michael Feng coming in hot with 10 damage on a Thunderquake. Iyslander blocking 6, taking 4. Yeah. Here's a Wounded Bull. 8 damage.
Were you able to see what this other card was? I really expected the second Insidious Shell to be arsenaled here.
I'm not 100% sure. So Michael blocking for 8, just getting the block value out of the Stalagmite where he can, and then ice reacting the last card out of Drew's hand. I think it's a Sink Below. It was either a Sink Below or Aether Icebane, so either way, kind of makes sense. Michael Feng just swinging the Titan's Fist for 4, and this going to get checked by Sink Below, then coming with an E-Strike for 7. Feng uses Tunic to Crown of Seeds. Since there's no Rampart or any other extra resources to really be used on Iyslander's turn right now, it makes sense that that's kind of the primary use for Tunic and Crown of Seeds. Probably not going to be a lot of opportunities to get a lot of value out of Crown of Seeds right now.
Yeah, and this is exactly where Michael wants to be, where he's just blocking a decent amount of damage and swinging back. And here comes 10 more damage. So I think it would have been reasonable also to block with 2 cards, Ice React, and swing the hammer. But this is also very good.
Yeah, 10 damage. A lot of damage.
It is.
Although it's not super far. It's a 3-card 10, right? So it's not the most efficient thing to necessarily be doing, but there's something to be said about dealing it all in like one go, right?
Yeah, it's just more likely that if you do 10 damage one turn and then 0 damage the next turn, it's just more likely that Iyslander is going to leak some more damage than if you go like 6 and 4 over 2 turns. Right. Because most of Iyslander's hand, she wants to block with 1 to 2 cards, maybe 3 cards, but usually 1 to 2 cards. And because of that, it makes these big 10 attacks a lot more awkward.
Yeah. Drooling.
And we see it even here. Drew ends up blocking with a 2-block because it's just how his hand lined up.
Cracking back with the Findall's Fighting Spirit, gaining his life. But Michael had a very healthy life total of 35, so definitely a long way for Drew to go, even if Michael Feng just elects to no block, which I don't know why he would. But he's not no blocking. He's blocking with a Command and Conquer and a Sink Below, taking no damage.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit surprised to see Sink Below in Michael's deck here. I know. I always say that when people are against Iyslander and they have Sink Belows. I'm like, that's interesting.
Speaking of Sink Below, there's a Command and Conquer being attacked with and Sink Below in Drew's hand right now. So not a very good timing for that defense reaction to be around.
Yeah, there's no pummel represented here, but Drew's hand is really awkward, and especially awkward that he can't use the Sink Below. So this is kind of one of the things that makes me value Crown of Providence in the matchup, is even when your hand's not amazing, or even when they're not representing the CNC pummel, sometimes the CNC is just enough that you want to cash in your hat and filter a card.
And this is kind of a really bad situation for Drew here, because now he has an Aether Ice Vein in Arsenal, and his hand is now the Blue Polar Blast and Sink Below, and the only thing he's able to do with his turn now then is just activate Coronet Peak and then pass with that Sink Below stuck in his hand.
Yeah, alternatively, he could have just cast the Aether Ice Vein unfused. I think that might have been better, because you probably get a damage through and get a card, and then you just Arsenal the Sink Below and you lose your first Aether Ice Vein, but it's not that big of a deal. You're looking to play all your Aether Ice Veins now, probably first cycle, since we saw he pitched the other 2 Insidious Chills already, or he blocked 1 and pitched 1, so it's not like he's trying to set up a second one before he plays these Ice Veins. So I think it would have been fine to just cast this one unfused and then just get the Sink Below in Arsenal and not waste a card.
Here comes a Cranial Crush for 8. Not too crazy. The crush effect doesn't matter, but it's really mostly just Drew's life total at the moment that's getting pressured. But what do you think about this play, though? So, blocking for 7, taking 1, and it looks like he's trying to then set up the Aether Ice Vein fused. I guess using the 2 cards for 7 is more efficient than using the Inline Strike to deal damage. I guess like Michael Feng's life total is just so high, and I'm just more incentivized to just trying to get something going on offense, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, the Ice Vein is also good on offense still. It's just like, this is kind of what happened because of how he basically blocked and played his last turn.
Mm-hmm.
Because he still has the Ice Vein in Arsenal and the Sink Below in hand, it kind of leads him to not want to keep the Enlightened Strike.
Yeah.
Because he needs to cast the Aether Ice Vein. But an alternative line would just be like, block with a 3-block, block with the Sink Below, and play the E-Strike for 7, and then try to Ice Vein on a later turn. And I think that would be fine too. But I feel like Ice Vein's just like not a card I'm super happy to have sitting in my arsenal, especially when I don't have Crown of Providence to protect it if I get CNC pummeled.
Well,
So
Feng's through 2 CNCs now. He's attacked with 1 and blocked with 1, so there's only 1 CNC left.
yeah, that's fair, but it could come up any turn.
Fair enough. And what do you think about this? Arsoning the Ice Bolt instead of the Cold Snap.
Yeah, I do actually like this play here. He has a Tunic counter, and that's usually the turn I'm looking to arsenal these 2 costs. And especially when he's playing an Ice Vein with an Insidious Chill in play, it's pretty likely to tax Michael's hand pretty heavily. Oldhim's going to first probably lose a card to Insidious Chill, lose a card to Aether Ice Vein, and probably the 2 extra resource will AB2 usually is what happens, or Crown plus AB1 or something. But yeah, I think this is very reasonable to arsenal the Ice Bolt here. You can see kind of flicking through Michael's hand. He has a Pummel and a Glacial Footsteps and 2 other cards that I'm not sure what they were, but because it's the Ice Vein turn, that's the turns that you don't really want to draw your red Pummels.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to keep enough cards to do it.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him just discard it.
Looks like there's an Endless Winter there as well. So multiple reds.
Oh, it's a blue Pummel, so he's going to play for the Insidious Chill.
That does make it much better.
And use Tunic counter against a second resource and eat all 5 of the damage from the Aether Ice Vein. But, and then, oh no, he AB2'd and then discarded. That's interesting.
Yeah, and floating a whole card here is very interesting.
He has to be ABing this, right? Yeah, so I guess so now that makes a lot more sense because he knows about the Ice Bolt that Drew really wanted to cast that turn cycle because of the Tunic counter. He was very incentivized to like get the efficiency off of that turn. Keeping the blue to AB on the following turn cycle makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, everything worked out really well for Michael there, where he kept the extra blue and then Drew played the Ice Bolt into it basically, so he got AB 3 extra with it.
Yeah, and then on the following turn, Drew was able to come in with the Finals Fighting Spirit, gain his life, and Michael Feng gets to decide how he wants to block this card. Looks like a block for 6, and then an Ice React.
Yeah, and this is a play pattern that Oldhim's pretty happy with. Usually you just block for 6, Ice React, Swing Hammer, and keep Iyslander off an arsenal. This is just like, yeah, I'd say just slightly more efficient turn to turn if she has her Wounded Bulls and Finals Fighting Spirits, but you basically have to draw one of those per hand to be more efficient than just like blocking for 6, Ice Reacting, and Swinging Hammer, because that's 10-point swing off a 3-card hand and you're playing 3 cards back. So like the turns that you don't have one of your big attacks, you're going to fall behind in spots like this. It's just really well played for Michael here.
Blocking with a red Aether Ice Vein. Interesting. And then what does he pitch? A red and a blue to Coronet Peak. Must be a red heavy hand?
Is this a red Emeritus Scolding?
Yeah. It must be. It's interesting. All throughout the stream, people kept asking, is this Michael's exact 80 from Indianapolis? And I was like, no, it is not. Because there's also, I believe, Blue Winner's Bites floating around here in this list as well.
We did see a Blue Winner's Bite pitched earlier. I'm extremely low on red Emeritus Scolding because it's basically only good on the turn you want to Storm Striders.
Yeah, agreed. And if you want an effect like that, it's arguable that an effect like what's the red wizard card that deals like the extra? All your wizard cards deal the extra arcane damage. Then, right?
Aether Wildfire. Which I don't care much for either, but I think both of those cards, the range that they're good is 2. Yeah, so yes, they will win you games in spots where other cards would not, but you have to basically draw them in those exact spots. And most of the time you're in a spot where you need like a spell to deal damage to your opponent on their turn at the end of the game. The 2 extra damage you're getting from playing red Scolding versus like blue Scolding or something like I guess you're probably not cutting blue Scolding, but like the 2 to 3 extra damage that the card is providing isn't worth how often it'll cost you something in the rest of the game.
Yeah, and so this turn cycle was very backbreaking for Drew here because Michael attacks with an Endless Winter, leaves 2 resources floating, and this Arsenal card that he's been sitting on for multiple turn cycles now. So it's fairly likely that a Pummel's going to come up on this turn cycle, and that's just representing so much damage. So 12 since it's a red Pummel. So Drew's just blocking for 3 here, going to take 9 damage, fall all the way to 10, and then have to discard an extra card.
Yeah, and we've talked about, I feel like I've talked a lot about how good CNC Pummel off a Tunic counter is, where you're getting you're spending 2 cards in a Tunic, or 3 cards in a Tunic resource for 10 damage, and you get the Pummel trigger. This was 4 cards for 12 damage with a Pummel trigger too, so it's like almost as good as that was. It's just the very powerful rate.
Yeah. Drew is going to be able to crack back here with Red Aether Ice Vein, at least. So, at least able to activate his Insidious Chill and start stripping some cards out of Michael's hand to maybe gain some tempo back.
This is blue Winter's Bite fused.
I believe it's Glacial E-Strike in Michael's hand.
It's like he's going to AV 2 off the Aether Ice Vein, take 3, and then pay 2 into the trigger.
More than likely just going to E-Strike draw a card on his turn then.
Yeah, E-Strike draw, or even E-Strike +2.
And it looks like Drew's actually electing to just push 2 arcane damage rather than Arsenal the blue Winter's Bite. So not a very high recommendation for blue Winter's Bite, I guess.
Yeah.
Here we see just that, the 5 draw card. So the Winter's Bite actually wouldn't have been able to snag this card drawn off of E-Strike. But
well, Michael would have had his Tunic still available. We saw he use the Tunic to prevent 1 damage from the Waning Moon.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's no Waning Moon, he'd still have his Tunic available.
Gotcha,
so
okay, gotcha. So then activating the Waning Moon makes a lot more sense then as well.
Yeah. I guess that's part of why I'm so low on blue Winter's Bite, is because of how bad it is in the Tunic.
Yeah.
Here we see 10 damage again.
Yeah, not fused. Kind of important now, but it is representing all of the life points that Drew currently has, so he's probably going to block this. We do see an Aether Ice Vein, Polar Blast, Ice Bolt, and one other blue ice card, I think a Channel Like Frigid, in Drew's hand. So he's going to fall all the way down to 2, but Emeritus Scalding, Michael Feng back, and then Waning Moon to just push in some point of damage. But 2 is a very precarious life total.
Yeah, this was a very aggressive, basically no block here.
He is able to follow it up with a yellow Aether Ice Vein and tax Michael's hand a lot more on the switch crackback, though. Looks like a Winter's Bite, 2 Rouse the Ancients, and a Disable in Michael's hand. So not a very good hand in this spot. It's always awkward when the rouses clump together like that.
I feel like that always happens. All the rouses get clumped together. Don't know how. It's so consistent, though.
Looks like 1 damage is going to be prevented from the Crown of Seeds, and then Michael's going to elect to AB1 and then pay for the Aether Ice Vein trigger. And then here's another heads up play. So it would have been pretty easy for Michael to just swing the Disable and try to push the most numbers he could this turn. But it's so likely that Drew needs to cast something on Michael's turn here in order to try to push arcane damage. So having the extra blues is going to really help mitigate the Waning Moon activation that's probably going to be coming here.
Yeah, and actually I'd say this is almost certainly a mistake from Drew to spend a card to swing the Waning Moon here. He could just cast the Polar Blast on his own turn. He's probably going to attack with a Wounded Bull anyway, so like,
cool.
It's still threatening.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
And it just lets Michael use his hand more efficiently than he would have been able to otherwise.
Yeah, that's the real reason that it's like kind of bad here. You're spending a whole card for 1 point of damage, basically, because you can assume one of Michael's 2 leftover cards are going to be a blue.
Yeah. Drew going all the way down to 1. If he was any lower, he would in fact be dead. But I guess Final's Fighting Spirit would help him go all the way back up to 2. Doubling your life total is pretty good.
Yeah.
And here we see Michael Feng cashing into Stalagmite, so blocking with 2/3 blocks, and Stalagmite to cover up all of the 7 damage from the Final's Fighting Spirit, and coming in with an Enlightened Strike for 7 on his turn. Notably, if he wants to, if Drew tries to, if he had like some kind of damage pushing effect in his arsenal, Michael would be able to activate Final Spring Tunic, get a resource, and then Crown of Seeds in order to filter out his arsenal to try to blue to get something to AB with.
So Drew's not quite out of it yet. This is coming in for 8. He's arsenaling a blue Scolding, which is probably the best card to have in your arsenal when the game is getting very close to the end. He just kind of needs Michael to have a weak turn to really...
Yeah. But I see some Sink Belows in Michael's hand. That's a good time for these to be lining up.
Yeah, there's been quite a few turns where Drew didn't attack. Especially like there was like a series of turns where Michael was sitting on a pummel and arsenal, and then the one turn that Drew did attack, he drew the Sink Below and still gotta leave the pummel and arsenal. So that lined up really well for him. But I'm still not a fan of Sink Below against Iyslander, but it's looked very good in this game. Every time it's just blocked 4 cleanly.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I think he's going to cast
There's
2
a pair of them.
Yeah. I think he's trying to think if he wants to filter with a Sink Below to try to hit something, what could he sink into?
Yeah, the most obvious hits are like something he can do. I did not expect that Crown of Seeds activation.
I think he just wanted information first. If he's looking to sink something off of these cards. So drawing the extra card helps him know what he wants to be filtering into first. Although here it looks like he's getting a little punished for it because I see a Macho Grande in his hand now. And obviously if he had 2 blues in Tunic Counter to cast Macho Grande, he'd be able to win the game on the spot. But attacking for 10 with a Thunderquake is also a good amount of damage when your opponent's at 1 life total point.
Yeah, definitely. We see, I believe that's an Exposed to the Elements in Drew's hand.
Yeah, that card does not block, in fact.
It does not.
I see some 2 blocks, so that's 5, 6, 7, 8, and then he can block with Ironhide Gauntlets for 10, right?
Yeah, if he blocks with the three cards in hand and the gauntlets, that gets to 10. The Tunic usage to pay for the gauntlets is kind of strange also. We imagine he's pitching this Expose the Elements to cast the Emeritus Scolding here.
Yeah.
And so he just have 1 resource floating to pay for the gauntlets. He didn't really need to use his Tunic counter there.
No, he didn't. See a lot of Aetherized Veins in hand now. A Blue Winter's Bite and a Brother in Arms.
Yeah, and immediately punished basically for using the Tunic counter because he drew Brother in Arms.
Yeah.
So, looks like with the Winter's Bite, it's probably going to be fine. Is that a red disable?
Yeah. No, it's blue. It's blue.
Okay.
So now Drew's going to arsenal a blue Aetherized Vein. Michael Feng coming in with 9 damage, attack, and Spinal Crush, 1 resource floating, and the Tunic counter. So if there's a pummel, Drew's in a lot of trouble here.
Mm-hmm. And even if there's not a pummel, Drew's in a lot of trouble. I see two blocks and an energy potion in this hand.
Yeah. And an Eisenhower Weathervane. So before damage, he's going to be able to at least play the Aetherized Vein to strip the card out. So plays around the pummel. But actually doesn't even have 9 block available in his hand of the cards left over. And takes 1 point of damage and dies.
Yeah. So I don't want to be too hard. Like, obviously things were going, like, some of Drew's choices I'm sure looked good for him during the rest of the tournament. But in the finals, we saw Eisenhower Weathervane be awkward. We saw Blue Winner's Bite be awkward. And we saw
Expose
the Elements and Red Emeritus Scolding. And that's like, none of those cards looked very impressive in this game. And I think that's kind of like, I'd say that my main takeaway from this game is there's
a cost to every single card you put in your list.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So every card you cut, every card you play, like it all matters. And we saw multiple times throughout the game where like changes he had made to the list. Basically, I don't want to say it like that. I feel like that comes across badly, but I think like the changes that he made from my list or a more traditional Bowlander list kind of they really hurt him in this game. And I think if those cards had been other cards, maybe he wins that game instead.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then Michael Feng played great. There were turns that he held a card or he held an extra blue in his hand. And every time he did, he got to get value out of it by blocking with his Arcane Barrier. And that's just like pretty good game state awareness by Michael, I'd say. And maybe one or two of those spots, maybe Drew didn't need to fire his Waning Moon into the extra card, basically.
Yeah, for sure. But Flesh and Blood's a hard game. And obviously congratulations to Drew for getting all the way to the semifinals, or the finals of this Battle Hardened, and congratulations to Michael Feng for winning it. And yeah, I don't really have any concluding thoughts myself, and I think Michael already summarized things pretty clearly, unless you have any final thoughts, Michael.
Yeah, I've played this matchup a lot, so I have strong opinions. I don't mean to be as harsh as I feel like maybe I was, and great job by both players. Making the finals of Battle Hardened is a very good achievement and something to be proud of. So, yeah, and yeah, happy that Wolfpack got to take another one down. That's great. Good stuff, Michael.
A woo. All right, everybody. The next time you're studying Flesh and Blood, always remember, mind your manners. Thanks for watching.